Hello out there and good morning, traders. It is April 16th, 2024, and welcome to the Apteros Daily Market Insight. Let's dive into our recap from yesterday. Taking a look at what was going on yesterday, I was neutral across the board. I didn't have a particular bias, and there were very good, solid contextual reasons for that. Essentially, what I was explaining to the students in a much more detailed DMI video was that we had two critical areas in the trading session. One was here, and one was here. In between these two zones, we were a little bit more bearish underneath that zone. We were a little more bullish above that zone, and that created some dissonance for us overall in our narrative. Now, at the time I was prepping, there really wasn't that clarity there. But I had mentioned to the students, maybe wait for the afternoon, and you'll end up seeing some clarity develop out of this market, especially if we clear out this particular zone. And that's essentially what we ended up seeing coming out of this market. In that area, it was really hard to kind of, go along with just any type of real bias from these areas, just because of the way the context was kind of stacking up at the time. But as the market developed, we ended up seeing that hold from that upper important area. It comes down into our lower important area here, right in this zone, and it stabilizes for a little bit, making it look like we were possibly going to rotate in between here and kind of chop around. Well, that stabilization was kind of short-lived, and we ended up seeing the acceptance of the downside. At this point here, in the context, the clarity is there. You are bearish at that point because you cleared out the dissonant zone. And this inflection was the main opportunity in the session in the afternoon for the NADRO students that we were working with coming into that afternoon opportunity. But at the time in the morning during the prep, that opportunity wasn't there. It wasn't present, and the acceptance picture wasn't clear in terms of having a clear, good line in the sand on the session. We had a couple of important areas up above and down below, but nothing really that we could lean into, unlike what we have a little bit more today whenever it comes to the context and the clarity around what's going on in the ES. So we kind of needed some clarity from the market yesterday. We got it on the bearish side of things, and that sets us up for what we have going on today. So taking a look at what's going on overall here, we have a straightforward line in the sand for us right here. And the idea is that we are bearish down below, heading into this as our main target area. And then any kind of continuation after that would be our destinations for some lower value areas. But as usual, we use our neutral areas as destinations overall for our trade ideas. So scenario one being what currently is accepted would be a move down into here, first target, and then second target here that's kind of the main idea for us for today's session. And then any continuation from there is bonus coming into these lower neutral levels. Now, scenario two would be a hold up above this zone. If we get a hold up above this, the market would be starting to pull back on some higher time frames, and we'd be looking into that first neutral area there, and then, of course, any kind of continuations to the upside heading into this overall bearish zone here. And that would be the main target for the upside, right? So that's our main target for the upside in terms of being the furthest stretch target we could look for. The main target on the downside is really into here, and then if we get some kind of lucky move that pushes us even further into this neutral area here, where we're looking at extra stretch targets down below, can't argue with a little extra, right? So that's where we're at right now. Where we're currently sitting in terms of the line in the sand and price, let's talk about the acceptance picture around that. This is really the move rhythmically here or here. And in either case, you're sitting right here in terms of rhythm. It's not fully accepted to the upside yet, but we're starting to see a little bit of some back and forth trade at this area. So being a little bit more patient, probably waiting for the open of the market to give us a little bit more of a direction, and that would kind of lead us into our different scenarios for scenario two or scenario one, which would be that downside movement. And then, of course, we have our targets down below and up above, and we can use that to our advantage. Right now, things are a little bit choppy in between there, but the current acceptance picture is still to the downside. We haven't fully made a rhythmic move to accept above that line in the sand yet. Now, that could change, obviously, with a little bit of a hold here and then a push up. Once we get that push up and we start to clear out this area or this zone, then we'd be switching into scenario two, looking at more of like a pullback type of scenario on our higher time frames, and that's what we would be paying attention to coming into today's session. All right. If that doesn't happen and we end up rolling over, then we're back into scenario one, and we continue on with the bearishness. All right. Now, whenever it comes to which side is a little bit more likely, normally that's not something that we dive into in terms of predicting or anything like that. So there really isn't a clear one side versus the other from this line in the sand. We have decent higher time frame arguments for both, which makes this a quality line in the sand for today's session. Because using the intraday landscape in the lower time frames, we can look at the acceptance picture around this line in the sand, and that's really going to dictate our overall outcome from the context. So this zone here is extremely important to the downside and to the upside today. And that's what makes a really good quality line in the sand for us in terms of context. And that's one of the powers that we have from NADRO analysis from a narrative perspective, right? And that's what we're really trying to drill down to here in these DMIs is understanding when we have clarity like we do today, as opposed to a little bit more of a difficult situation, a back and forth read in a difficult area is what we had yesterday. All right. So trade well out there, mind your risk, and let's get after it.